Hello, I'm Debanjali Roy, and this is a very short video on the relationship between language and communication. For starters, let's discuss what is language. Language is the purely human and non-instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotions, and desires by means of a system of voluntarily produced symbols. Now, this definition has been provided by Edward Sapir in his Introduction to the Study of Speech in 1921. As for the relationship between language and communication, language is a system of communication. It is a link, an associative product between thoughts, that's the ideas contained, the ideas which generate a communication, and expression, that's the utterance. So, as is proven, language is integral to communication. And when we talk about expression, this expression may be verbal or non-verbal in nature. Verbal, as in the use of articulation is required, a verbal articulation is required, and non-verbal as in gestures, postures, paralinguistic features, etc. Now, from the studies of Professor Mehrabian, only 3% of our total communication per day is verbal in nature, whereas 97% is non-verbal. Now, this statistics, this data is debated, but more or less, as we can understand from various surveys and various projects, we can come to a conclusion that non-verbal communication is more significant for our communication process as compared to the verbal ones. Now, communication. Talking about communication, communication is expression, interaction, discussion, sharing of ideas between a sender and a receiver using appropriate medium or channel. Now, the basic features or the basic steps which are included in a communication process, in a communication system, are ideation, encoding, decoding, and feedback. Now, to talk about ideation, encoding, decoding, and feedback, first we have to understand about the two essential components of a communication system. One, the sender, and the other one, the receiver. So, the first thing in a communication process is the generation of an idea for communication, and this is usually done by the sender. The sender generates an idea for communication. The process is known as ideation. Now, this idea is used in a language, or rather language is used to codify that idea. So this process is known as encoding. Now, when the idea is spoken out or communicated to the receiver understands the idea if the encoded language is understandable by the receiver. Now, this process is known as decoding, which once again leads to the final stage of the communication, which is the process of feedback, where the receiver replies the sender, and by replying the sender becomes the new sender of an idea or the new sender of a code. So if we simply consider the first sender of an idea to be S1 and the receiver to be R1, in this case at the towards the end of the communication, the R1 becomes S2 and the S1 becomes R2. Communication, as I said, it's verbal and non-verbal in nature, or verbal where it's conscious and structured, and non-verbal communication is relatively unpredictable and unstructured in nature. These are the few categories or the few types of non-verbal communication usually found in any communication system: proxemics, kinesics, haptics, oculistics, paralanguage, and intonation. Now, we'll be discussing each of these topics in detail in some other video. Thank you so much.